that I'm Julia Hamm, and I am the C3E ambassador. And for the past 19 years, I've been the CEO of a nonprofit called the Smart Electric Power Alliance. But after 19 years, I have 3 more days in that job. But I'm personally really excited to be able to give this award, in particular to this awardee, because after living in DC for the past 25 years, I just moved to Southwest Florida 3 months ago. So I have now lived through my first major hurricane. And so while a lot of my work professionally has focused on the topic of resilience, I now have a very deep personal understanding of resilience, and that really has just fueled even more my passion about that topic. And so, again, very connected to this particular awardee, and it's my pleasure to introduce Angelica Ramdhari, who is the Resilient Solar Director for Solar One, as this year's winner for the C3E Education and Advocacy Award. She is working in an incredibly challenging environment in New York City, which has a reputation as being the most strictly regulated environment for stationary battery storage systems anywhere in our country. And it really is only the largest manufacturers and installers that have the resources to even enter that particular market. Yet she has been absolutely instrumental in leading the way by facilitating many of the first fully permitted battery storage projects in the city, which are leveraging a $5.3 million grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the New York Governor's Office for Storm Recovery. She has successfully navigated the labyrinth and perpetually evolving regulatory environment for battery storage systems in New York City, and is leading on the construction for 11 solar plus battery storage projects in communities that are especially vulnerable to grid failure during catastrophes like Superstorm Sandy. We were having dinner last night, and she told me these 11 projects, while some of them are now fully permitted, she's been working on these projects for 7 years, and none of them are yet operational. This is the persistence and the focus that is, makes her so deserving of this award. And I said, gosh, isn't this frustrating that you've been working on these projects for so long and yet none of them are commissioned? And her response was no, like she feels this personal responsibility. She is charting the course. She is working through to make sure that the regulations, that the testing requirements, that all of these things are getting sorted through. So not only her projects, but all these other projects that others are working on will have a much smoother path going forward. So that to me really demonstrates the leadership role that she's playing. In addition, she has worked on a lot of solar projects. She's personally responsible for driving over 3 megawatts of installed solar in New York City. And has just done so many other amazing things, especially as it relates to residential solar, using innovative financing models focused on low-income communities in Brooklyn that are so often overlooked by the private sector. She's also very active in DEI-related efforts. She serves on the New York Solar Energy Industry Association's DEI committee and very, again, committed to that work. She's a staunch proponent of hyper-local civic engagement and is very active in a whole variety of things in multiple districts within New York City. She's a native of New York and has returned back to New York, but also spent many years in Florida. And she told me a fun fact about herself was that when she was in school at the University of Florida, she started the Neutral Gator program, which was focused on greening the university's athletics program and facilities. And in fact, her work led to the first carbon neutral college football stadium in the whole country. So she has accomplished so much already in her career, but clearly has the potential to make an even greater impact on our industry and the world. And so for this reason, she's very deserving of this C3E award. Congratulations to Angelica.
Okay, thank you, and hello. I'm Angelica Ramdhari, as Julia said, and it's great to meet so many of you and talk to you now. So it's really difficult for me to talk about myself, so in order to talk about myself, I'm going to tell you about a couple of other people who have shaped my journey. starting with my parents, my family, who I'm super excited is joining us via the live stream. Hopefully it's working. Hopefully you hear me. They've taken a break from HGTV and are now tuning into this. But we grew up so I'm a product of the diaspora. My ancestors are from India, then they went to Guyana, then then to New York, and then the very long journey to Florida. So it's been very interesting thinking about the pattern of the migration and what has prompted all of these things. And the migration to Florida was because of the climate. New York was too cold, but Florida, with the hurricanes, was okay. So as a child, we lived in a very rural community. My dad built our house. He built it on a hill, kind of like this. Because of the hurricanes, we had alligators in our canals, Julia. They will come for you eventually. But hurricanes were great because we would get time off from school and nothing ever happened to our home. But you don't see this in other parts of the country where their buildings are not as resilient. So while we were built up and we were able to put on hurricane shutters, our house was perfect for shelter. Whereas on the Gulf Coast, many of those buildings got destroyed and didn't have access to power. We had a diesel generator, which I didn't realize at the time was not only very polluting, but also very toxic. But it was helpful to think about now, as my parents were powering our refrigerator and other essential things, why this was important. And that's helped me think about how I work with communities today. So moving forward a little bit, the next person I'm going to talk about is my life partner, Bill Wetzel. He's sitting in the corner back there, giving some diversity to this room. So growing up, I was very shy. I'm still very shy. But I think back in 2015, he pointed me to the fact that it's not okay to accept the status quo and accept what people are doing to you. And he really inspired me to push back, to keep fighting and advocating for the things I wanted. And that's I'm very annoying, but he's still here. I think that personality trait, I'm no longer seen as shy. I'm very outspoken. I will advocate for people, and I really have to attribute that to Bill's coaching me out of my shyness. And now the third person I'm going to talk about is directly in front of me is Michelle Chung. Michelle nominated me for this award, and I think we've met in person maybe a handful or two handfuls of time. And that is because Michelle and I started working together during the pandemic. So I work for a nonprofit. We have lots of turnover, whatever, it's prevalent in the industry. But we hadn't met for a long time. All of our correspondence was digital. We Zoomed all the time, and we somehow created this bond where we could collaborate with each other and collaborate with our communities and our projects and have that be a success from Zoom, which is really great. I think the thing that is most important in our work is communication. In advocacy, you need to be able to speak to people and speak their language. And working with Michelle, I feel like that has definitely come true. And I am so proud of her. She is in Chicago getting her graduate degree. Please hire her when she's done. But in addition to speaking Portuguese, French, Dutch, English, Cantonese, she also speaks the language of resilient energy, which is really important. So the work I do is deploying solar and storage projects. The grant that Julia mentioned through HUD is CDBG-DR funding, since we are in DC. And what that means is the money that is being used for these projects is being used for disaster recovery. So we are working on storage for resilience, but storage has so much more potential. You can use it for, well, everybody knows what you can use it for, but it's really important to note that this is being used for resilience because these projects take so much to get through. So I know Silvio is noted as a risk taker. I'm a little risk averse. If there's a chance of rain, I'll wear a raincoat or bring an umbrella. But it's the same mindset that the New York City regulatory agencies also have. So at the fire department, you have to navigate their safety requirements. And because of that, you often get lost in what's needed, and you need to be able to translate what they need to the community, to the developers, to manufacturers, all of that. So it's really important to be able to do that. But that risk comes with gigantic reward because New York City has the largest population in the States. We have a wide range of income, and it's really hard to reach everybody because of that. I know solar costs have come down, but in New York City, they haven't come down. We've had to give people incentives, like an additional incentive to make it affordable for them. And storage, while the cost of technology has come down, the soft costs keep going up as people are afraid to tackle the permitting barriers. So I am so happy to be here and grateful, and thank you for having me.